Hey guys, Jonty Hikmet here, welcome to my channel. In today's video, I wanted to speak about my journey with stomach pain, how I eventually got lasting relief. If you've watched any of my videos, you know that how I eventually got lasting relief was using the mind-body approach, understanding how my repressing emotions was affecting my nervous system, therefore giving me pain. So that is going to be the ending, that's going to be the happy ending. But I'd like to speak a bit more about my relationship to food, how it became obsessive, how I changed my relationship to food, how my relationship to going to the toilet, that was a big deal. If you're watching this with stomach pain, maybe you have this kind of challenging relationship with going to the toilet. I just want to speak a bit about these sorts of things. It's the video that I wish I had over 10 years ago when I was really struggling with this. It's the video I wish someone would kind of sit me down to watch so that I could understand exactly all the things I tried to really relate to the person making the video and the eventual solution. So let me start from the beginning. Let me start with when I first had stomach pain. So I first started to notice bad stomach pain when I was a teenager. I think I was about 15 or 16 years old. My stomach started to act weird. I would have pain in the night. I'd be constipated. I'd then get diarrhea. I was all over the place. And the first thing I did, as everyone does, is I went to the doctors. They gave me peppermint pills. Didn't do anything. It made everything coming out of me just smell minty. That's all it did. So that didn't really work. And they told me I had IBS. They tell everyone that, with stomach pain, you have IBS. Maybe it's stress. Maybe some people just have it. Good luck. That's kind of what I was told. It turns out what the second, third, fourth, or fifth doctor told me, I don't know how many doctors I'd seen. I was seeing doctors and gastroenterologists all the time. They realized, they asked me if I was taking any medication, and I had been. I'd been taking antibiotics for my acne. And they said, how often do you take it? I said, every day. And they said, how long have you been taking it for? And I said, 2 years. I'd been taking antibiotics every single day for my acne for 2 years. And this gastro said, that's messed up your stomach. Antibiotics can mess your gut up. You should be taking probiotics. You should be taking something to put the good bacteria back in. And as soon as this person said this, this gastro, and it was a real, turning point for me. He'd even said that you should think about what you're eating. You should think about not having junk food so much and eating more clean food. He was the first person to suggest antibiotics maybe have messed up your gut, and maybe you should think about rectifying your diet in some way. So then I went down that health path, which again, a lot of people with stomach pain will do. I found nutritionists. I found all about health. I became obsessed. I cut out gluten. I cut out dairy. I was only looking to eat organic. I was taking probiotics. I was seeing all the different health practitioners in that arena. And you know what? It really, really helped. And anyone with stomach pain that has changed their diet, that has gone down that route of healthy eating and healthy lifestyle, they can maybe attest to the fact that that lifestyle can really help. It helped. I saw a notable difference when I started to stop eating grains and dairy. I remember the acne on my skin cleared as a teenager, but into my early 20s, I still had acne on my back. I wasn't so bothered about it, but it was still there. When I cut out certain foods, all of that just cleared up. Suddenly, so I was like, wow, this is really the solution. The solution all along was just eat cleaner and try and live cleaner. Limit alcohol, limit caffeine, all the normal things that they'll tell you for a healthy diet. And the acne on my back cleared up. I noticed my stomach started to, get more consistent and not be in pain as much. So I thought, you know what, here's a solution, easy. A lot of people find themselves in that lifestyle and then they're fine. But after a while, my stomach started to kind of act up again. It was never as bad as it once was, but it started to act up again. And all that happened when my stomach would act up is I got into the habit of blaming everything on food. I got into the habit of saying, all right, if my stomach acted up, it must mean because something was wrong with the food I ate. And little did I know that was a kind of its own dangerous spiral where I eventually became quite obsessed with all the different foods I ate. It's, a condition I later realized was called orthorexia, healthy eating obsession. where whenever I'd have any kind of stomach flare up, I would blame the last meal. I would kind of look at it and go, okay, maybe it's because the meat wasn't organic. Maybe because it was meat and I need to be vegetarian. Maybe it's because I mix carbs with protein and I need to not do that. Maybe it's because I need to cut out FODMAPs. It's because I had broccoli. That's what it was. You become obsessed with all the different elements of eating. You don't realize it's an eating disorder, really, until a bit later. I didn't realize it was until a bit later. So I got stuck in that loop. And again, you're eating healthy. You kind of otherwise feel good. You don't think it's a problem. You don't think it's a problem that you're doing that you're just saying, oh, no, I can't eat broccoli, but I still need to eat greens. I can only eat spinach because, I was doing all kinds of things like this. Obsessively looking on Google to see where I can adjust my diet to make sure that my stomach always stays, in line. Obsessed with going to bed at a certain time because if I go to bed late, then that's going to affect my gut and then it's going to affect my digestion, etc. Obsessed with what it would look like in the toilet, like how my poos would look, just to speak quite upfront about it. I'd be obsessed if my poo wasn't fully formed and looking healthy as I decided it needed to do to look healthy. I wouldn't like that. I'd panic. I'd go, oh no, what did I do wrong? What was it that I ate that was wrong? It was always about food. Maybe I need to adjust my diet here. So I was obsessed with my poo being perfect. I was obsessed with my poo being consistent. The most obsessed that I ever got was I was obsessed with my poo having to be, I'd have to poo every day and I had to poo in the morning. Again, sorry for being very upfront. But again, this is the video I wish I had once upon a time. I was obsessed. You may be watching this not having the same sort of obsession, or maybe you do. I needed my poos to be in the morning because I'd heard that that's someone with a healthy going to the toilet cycle would poo in the morning. So I was obsessed with the poo being in the morning. It had to be before my first meal and it had to be fully formed. And if it wasn't exactly that, this is as obsessed as I got, the day was ruined for me. Maybe I was getting on with my day as normal according to everyone, but deep down in my head, I was like, what did I do wrong? How did I eat wrong? Do I need to eat more? Do I need to eat less? Did I eat the wrong foods? That's as obsessed as I got. And again, I otherwise looked healthy. I looked in shape. It's a very sinister background obsession that you create. On and off for years, in the meantime, I've been told that perhaps gut issues have something to do with emotions. I didn't quite know what that meant, but I heard in the background maybe stress, burying emotions. I wasn't quite sure what that meant. I thought I was a calm person, so I didn't think it really related to me. But because I was in these health circles, I was in the kind of yoga world at this point, I'd heard this about repressing emotions and how that could lead to, some sort of disharmony in the mind or body. But I didn't know what that meant and I didn't think it applied to me. And to be honest, it would frustrate me when I'd hear that come up because I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know how to approach that. It just felt very woo-woo and outside of my realm of possibility. So I avoided it for a while. It was only when I started to train a bit more deeply as a yoga and meditation teacher did I have my first epiphany of, oh wow, maybe my gut issues all along have been something to do with emotions. What had happened is I had a great mentor, a meditation teacher of mine, who suggested we do one-on-one sessions, mainly to help me with becoming a meditation teacher, but he also suggested we do something called IFS therapy. If you haven't heard of IFS therapy, it stands for Internal Family Systems Therapy. It's a wonderful therapeutic modality, which I'm trained in now, which I help people with chronic pain. I use it with people who have chronic pain to help them getting over their symptoms. And this meditation mentor of mine happened to be an IFS therapist. And in our one-on-one sessions, he asked, do you want to try this type of therapy? I'd never had therapy before. I didn't think I needed it, really. Which is funny. Again, this is like my mid to late 20s at this point. And so I was like, okay, let's try this therapy. And all of a sudden, in this therapy, in doing these one-on-one sessions, I started to notice all these parts of my psyche, we speak about parts in IFS therapy, that I hadn't really ever paid attention to. I hadn't ever really noticed. All of a sudden, there were parts of me that were feeling a lot of fear, feeling a lot of anger, feeling a lot of perfectionism, feeling all these things I never realized were there because I never really went inside and looked. As far as I was concerned up until that point, the way I was using meditation was just to relax, just to soothe, just to calm my nervous system down. I loved it. It made me feel really grounded. I didn't know the extent to which it was helping with my digestion. I just knew it made me feel good. And all of a sudden, I'm with this mentor. I'm learning new things about meditation. I'm learning new things about my psyche. Suddenly, I'm realizing I'm not this calm, collected person I thought I was. Suddenly there's all this anger and sadness and fear and disappointment and sexual shame. And there was all these things, loneliness coming up. I mean, I wasn't even ready to look at. I was like, wow, is this the truth of who I am? I thought I was a calm person. I was learning all these things in IFS therapy and really understanding meditation that I didn't realize was there. And again, I was doing these one-on-one sessions just to become a meditation teacher. I wasn't doing these because I thought it was going to affect my stomach in any way. But what would happen after these sessions is not only did I feel a bit different and ungrounded, but my stomach started to act different. It wasn't like it immediately got better. It started to act different. It started to not respond to foods in the same way. It started to... It was a notable difference. I can't quite explain what it was, but it was enough for me to say to this meditation mentor of mine, like, what's going on? Like, my body's acting kind of strange after we have these one-on-one sessions. And he said to me, yeah, this is how the mind and body work. I'd heard about the gut-brain connection, but I didn't quite know how it applied to me. I knew it had something to do with stress. Again, I didn't think I was stressed until I went inside and I noticed all these parts. And he said, yeah, this is how the mind and body are connected with one another. There's a good chance, because you've never connected to these parts of your psyche until now. They have unconsciously been affecting your body. They've been affecting your stomach all along. And this again opened my mind up, and I was like, wow, has it always been the fact that I've been repressing these parts of my psyche, repressing emotions that has led to gut pain? Was it maybe nothing to do with food? When I first started to think about this, I wasn't quite ready for what that meant, because I enjoyed the lifestyle of eating healthy. I enjoyed it. I didn't want to consider the fact that, oh no, it never had anything to do with food. It was only about repressing emotions. But still, I was intrigued enough to do more exploration. And as it turned out, there was a whole industry just starting to be born out of the mind-body approach. I say just starting to be born. If you're watching this and you haven't heard of Dr. John Sarno, then please go seek out his books. He's got 3: Healing Back Pain, The Mind-Body Prescription, and The Divided Mind. All these books had come out by the time I went exploring the mind-body approach. So the industry was already really in its early days, even though he'd been doing, John Sarno, his work, as early as the 80s. At first, it was ridiculed and kind of like cast aside. The industry was really starting to gather quite a lot of pace in the 2000s. And it's lucky because that's about the time I found the books. And in these books, if you've read them, it will start to speak about the sorts of characters, personality traits that tend to develop chronic pain, back pain, pelvic pain, stomach pain, what have you. People that like to be in control, perfectionists, high achiever, people pleasers, do-gooders, planners, very responsible people. And this book really spoke to me, as it has done for, thousands, maybe even millions of people. I don't know how many people have read the books. I was like, wow, this is me. I am these personality traits. And I did develop chronic pain. And I went back being a teenager, and he speaks about adverse childhood experiences and trauma. I hadn't gone through major trauma in my life, but I did have a difficult period being a teenager, as a lot of people have done. And I felt very alone in that. And again, most of Western society and familial, nurture does not support emotions in the way that really the nervous system needs. The most of Western society, it tries to rescue and fix emotions. It tries to self-soothe sadness and anger and fear, a lot of emotions that I know I experienced as a teenager. So even though, looking back, I took antibiotics every single day, that very well probably negatively affected my gut. I also had a very difficult period as a teenager. Lots of stress, lots of anger. Again, I mentioned sexual shame, just the typical things that kids go through as a teenager. And I didn't have any support to know how to be with those emotions. For some people watching that, it clearly is their parents are to blame. And for me, it wasn't really that my parents were to blame. I did have a good childhood, but there wasn't the space, because they didn't have it for themselves, to really know how to be with everything arising for me. And so I buried all of that. I protected myself from feeling that. Being a young boy as well at the time, I couldn't speak about sexual shame. I couldn't speak about anger. I couldn't speak about fear, frustration. And because I buried a lot of that, that most likely contributed to my stomach pain at the time as a teenager. It could have even contributed to my acne at the time. It's a very difficult period for anyone. So anyway, I'm circling back. I was with this meditation mentor, starting to do IFS therapy. I started to read these John Sarno books. I realized, oh my God, I have probably been repressing emotions for a long time. I need to start to explore this more. And I did with this mentor. I did with the help of the books. I started to meditate more in a way of allowing emotions than self-soothing. Again, if you don't know what I mean by that, watch some other videos of mine. There's a difference between using meditation to self-soothe, to relax the breath, to relax the body, very valuable. But there's a difference between that and using meditation to allow what is, to not grasp for relaxation, to let yourself feel restless, let yourself feel fear, let discomfort arise in the body and really sit with it. What that does, what that did for me when I started to do it that way, it started to teach my nervous system it's okay that there's all these parts of my psyche that I used to bury. They can be here now. I can be afraid. I can be frustrated. I can feel the shame. It's not comfortable to do this in meditation, but I learned how to get comfortable being with discomfort. And over the weeks, the months, I started to also reevaluate my choices in food. I started to experiment eating all these foods I wouldn't usually eat. I started to experiment the fact that actually, changing my perspective, actually my body can digest anything. I cultivated over the years this belief that I can't eat gluten, I can't eat dairy, I can't eat all these things. And I started to go, no, my gut can handle this. My gut, as a part of, the mind-body system, is more affected by how energy disperses around the body. It's more affected by my ability to allow all emotions in safe spaces, meditation, journaling, my ability to make sure I'm having the conversations in my life that I'm not putting off. I understand my needs, my boundaries. My gut is more affected by how much fun I'm having, how much intimacy there is in my life. Exercise and diet is important, but it's not as important as it was once to me. I started to reevaluate. It took, about 6 months to a year seeing this meditation mentor of mine. I know I'm going all over the place, but it took about 6 months to a year of me seeing this mentor for me to reevaluate my food choices, to start to get a bit easier and realize that I'd become obsessed with food. So I started to be like, maybe I can eat broccoli. Maybe I can have a sandwich. It's still important to eat healthy, but maybe I can be a bit more lenient about it. And I'm going to start to really be with my emotions every single day and understand what that means. Be with the discomfort of that. Change my mindset about what really affects my gut. It took about 6 months to a year for me to no longer be as afraid of my stomach, to no longer be watching how my poo looks, to not be as afraid of food, eating out, not try and control what was on the menu every time I left the house. It was like, no, I'm going to be okay. My gut can handle any food. What really is affecting my nervous system is my ability to be with and allow emotions to be here in safe spaces, meditation, journaling, supportive communities. And the transition over to this new way of living was transformative. It was magical. It was so magical that, as well as becoming a meditation teacher, I also decided to become an IFS therapist and help other people with what I'd gone through. Because after that year, my gut pain had all but disappeared. It was a completely different thing. Don't get me wrong, I still have the very normal ups and downs that anyone will have with their mind and body in terms of sometimes having pain here and there, but I no longer heavily blame it on food. I know I say, okay, there's something that's coming up for me in my life. It's fine. I'll just adjust it. I'm no longer looking at my poos to decide whether or not they're worthy or not, or healthy or not. It's just things come in, things come out. It's fine. I'm getting on with my life. All the while, I'm making sure I'm more emotionally available for myself. Again, if you're watching this and you're not quite sure what that means still, this is where understanding how to utilize meditation, journaling, and even, again, seeing a therapist to truly understand what you're probably burying, what emotions you're most likely not allowing yourself to feel. If you're not quite sure how to do this, that's why I set up a community. That's why, I retrained as an IFS therapist, and for years I started to see people one-on-one, and I eventually set up the community. You may be watching this in my community, so maybe you're already taking part in it, but if you're not, you can see the link below. You can join. You can understand what it means to really allow yourself to feel and how that can affect your stomach. So, I've very much done this spontaneously. I didn't really plan what I was going to say, in which order I was going to say, so apologies if it was a bit all over the place. But essentially, once upon a time, I had what was diagnosed as IBS. I went to lots of treatments and doctors. Eventually, they told me it was because of food, it was because of probiotics. I became obsessed with that. It helped somewhat for a long time, but it was always not quite there, and I became a bit eating disorder, a bit obsessed with health. Eventually, I found that I was repressing emotions, even though I didn't realize I was. And I became less obsessed with diet. I became less obsessed with what my poos looked like. And I started to, reconsider what gut pain really meant, what any pain in the body meant. I retrained as an IFS therapist. I help other people get through their pain now as well. So that's my story. As always, I'm sure I've left something out. I'll always do another video about this at some stage. But if you're watching this on YouTube and you have any questions, you'd like to find out more about how you can also help your IBS, your gut pain, using the mind-body approach, what that means for you, please join the community or ask me a question below. If you're watching this in my community, then you know exactly what to do below. Ask any questions to me. Anything else I'd like to share? Yeah, if you have stomach pain, there's a way out. You don't have to be in this any longer. You really can get to a place where you don't have to panic with every single food that you eat. You can get to a place where your stomach won't be in pain and can be a bit more consistent. You can get to a place where you really understand the reasons why everything is happening and what to do to alleviate that. So thanks for watching, and looking forward to hearing from you soon.